He is Senator Rick Santorum. I've already dispelled the rumors. He's not running for president.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. But if Romney jumped in, no, I'm just kidding. So much as we love seeing you in Iowa, and I know you can't resist the Iowa State Fair, why are you here?
I am here. First off, I can't resist Iowa, and I love the Iowa State Fair, and I love coming to Iowa any chance I get.
Right.
But I am here to advocate on behalf of Convention of the States.
Okay.
And Iowa is one of the 15 remaining states that we need to pass a Convention of the States resolution so we can get power out of Washington, D.C., stop the tyranny, accumulation of power and the tyranny that comes with power out of Washington, and allow Iowans to be Iowans and Californians to be Californians, and allow us to get along with each other with our differences.
Right. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. The hierarchy of the Republican Party here in Iowa are not fans at all. They're very strongly opposed. And they always come up with the same argument, runaway convention, that's what happened the first time, blah, 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 blah. How do you respond to all that?
I respond to that any proposed amendment, first off, the convention that we're asking the legislature to help create is a convention that, under the Constitution, Article 5, to propose amendments to the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Congress can propose amendments to the Constitution.
Sure.
We can have a runaway Congress,
right,
and the Congress can be proposing these amendments.
Mm-hmm.
So when the legislatures get together, all 50 states get together, they can propose amendments. Any amendment that is proposed by this convention has to get 38 state legislatures to ratify it.
Right.
I'll give you my email address. Send me a resolution, an amendment that could be ratified by 38 states that would be a bad amendment.
Right. Like, they
get rid of the Second Amendment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Let's abolish the Second Amendment.
Yeah, and you don't think 13 states in the United States will stop that from happening. The reality is that more likely than not,
right,
very little will be accomplished, because even if there are 10 or 12 or whatever amendments proposed, very few of them will have a chance of passing. That's things like, I think something like a court packing amendment, anti-court packing.
Yep.
So saying that the Supreme Court will be 9 justices.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could get 38 votes, to be honest with
yep.
you. But things like that is what we're looking at. But the most important thing is to have the convention. The founders put a whole bunch of provisions in the Constitution to have the states have the ability to check the power of Washington, D.C. The most important was that senators were elected by the state legislatures and were beholden to them. Right? That was removed with the 17th Amendment.
Yep.
And now states don't have the ability to check the power of Washington except this. And we just have to convince them that it's time to start using that power so we can check the power in Washington.
Okay, so the most popular one that we hear about is term limits.
Yes.
And you're never going to get term limits if you leave it up to Congress, because turkeys don't vote for Thanksgiving. You've missed me, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah, I knew you had. But that's the reality. They don't. That's never going to happen. So the only way that could ever possibly happen would be if you could get 38 states to agree to it. I think there's a shot for that.
The most important thing about term limits that it's in this resolution that we're asking the Iowa legislature to pass is it's not just term limits on members of Congress. Mm-hmm. It's also term limits on the bureaucrats.
Right.
And so the idea, that's why I think a broader term limits thing saying, look, Tony Fauci can't stay in that position for 40 years and ignore Congress and do whatever the heck he wants to do. Mm-hmm. We see more and more. You look at the FBI. Look at all these places where you have these bureaucrats who just get sunk in there, ignore whoever the president is, fight any kind of change. They run the place. And if we can say, look, you can only be there 10 years or 15 years or whatever it is, and you got to move on, then we can get our government back, and that fifth estate, that deep state, we can make it a lot shallower.
Right, and I think that's very important. So why do you think you're getting resistance in Iowa from the hierarchy of the Republican Party?
Candidly, fear.
Okay.
That people are afraid of you. They're afraid that if we actually have a convention, that you can't be trusted. The public can't be trusted
Right.
with that. And here's what I say. Having a national convention to propose amendments to the Constitution would be the biggest story. It would be the first time in our history done it. It would be a huge story. There'd be all sorts of press. And guess what would happen? We'd actually start learning what the Constitution teaches. What are limits to federal power? What should the federal government do? What should the state government do? You'll have groups starting organizing, saying this is the amendment we'd like to see proposed.
Right.
We'd have a national conversation about who we are as a country. Don't you think we need that?
Oh, I do. No, listen, I do. I point this out all the time. In fact, we had Zach Nunn, Colonel Zach Nunn, in studio, in that chair. Right at the beginning of the show today, and we were talking about the fact that on the Republican side there's a bunch of military people running, but the reality is on the Democrat side there's a bunch of military people running, and I said, if you all get there, you can actually have a conversation because you respect each other.
Yes.
And it's not like what we have now. If it's proposed by a Republican, then all the Democrats scream, it's disgusting and probably racist. And if a Democrat proposes something, all the Republicans will scream, well, it's liberal garbage. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's the best idea ever. It's like built in that they can't possibly support anything suggested by the other side. And we absolutely need to move on from there. JFK was a tax-cutting president. Hello?
Yeah. Yep,
right?
He was. Yeah,
they would drum him out of the party
cash.
today,
Yeah.
right? He'd be drummed out of the party today.
And he was also very strong on national security, which is, again, not what the Democratic Party is today. So, Look, the parties change, but what we need to do, in my opinion, is to get the people back engaged in their government. And I think I also believe, as you're starting to hear more and more, there's talk of nullification and even talk of violence, and we have to give the average American a place to channel their energies to see something positive happen, to head our country in a better direction. And this is what our founders did. They put this provision in as the emergency clause of the Constitution, that if government ever got out of control and began to get tyrannical, we would have a way for the people. Remember, nothing in this convention involves Washington. The Congress has no say. The president has no say. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Court has no say. This is for the people to decide, and that's why the founders put it there.
I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks are willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.